Welcome to Fullerton Seventh-day Adventist Adult Sabbath School class. We'll be streaming online today as we have been for several months now. And I just wanted to welcome you all here and just wish you a Merry Christmas. Obviously, we've just one day passed, and I just want to thank you for taking the time in the holiday schedule to come and study with us. Although in this case, it's going to just be me this time. So due to some scheduling conflicts and such, the pastor was unable to stream with me, so it's just me. So you lucked out. All right. So this lesson is a fascinating one. It's very something that's right up my alley, you might say. I like pushing my mind. I like thinking of things that are pardon me. Thinking of things that are uh, different, outside the box. I like to be inventive, creative. And so talking about heaven and such here is something that really, can push the creative juices. So let's dive right in here. Just first want to start with a few things. Obviously, if you don't know who I am, my name is Kyle Wallington, and I am the teacher today. And hopefully you'll be enjoying this lesson. This lesson is called, excuse me, Heaven, Education, and Eternal Learning. It's lesson 13 for Sabbath, December 26th. And it's the 13th lesson, so it's the end of the quarter, finishing off the quarterly, and we'll be starting a new one next Sabbath. So let's finish this one off. I thought this was a really good lesson this quarter. I mean, they're usually pretty good, but sometimes they're better than others. And this one, just the idea of including education into the different aspects of religion and just life, I think is very important to consider. It's a big aspect of everything we do. So now, obviously, since you're watching this, you probably already know you're here, but just in case, if you are looking to view all our sermons and our Sabbath schools, all the previous recordings and the recent one, you can visit our website at fullertonadventist.org/Sabbath school. And there you can access all of them. You can also check us out on YouTube. We have an official YouTube channel. And we just are grateful if you're able to visit us and check us out. And also, if you are on YouTube, we would like to just ask you to subscribe to our channel. It helps us advertise. And it also can give you updates on what we're doing, and it's free. So why not, right? All right. Let's see here. I think that's everything I wanted to go over. So let's start with this lesson. Again, I want to thank you for bearing with us as we deal with some of these technical difficulties and such that we have. We've had to again switch up because we're now streaming from home, and I'm learning some new stuff this way, and so I'm enjoying it, but it also is a lot more work, and especially at this time of year, so I apologize if we are having some issues and such, but pray that you'll just deal with us. And speaking of praying to deal with us, let's open with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we are just blessed to be here this Sabbath morning and to have you in our life. You provide us wisdom and creativity and interest. Part of education is involved in so many different things. It helps us survive, but it also helps us enjoy life and be creative. There's just so many things you provide us with education, Father, and we're just so grateful for that. And as we delve into this lesson, we're going to find out that our education here is just the beginning, and we should really have a goal of getting to heaven and being able to experience the education directly from you, Father. And I just pray now that you would open our mind and heart and help us to study your word. I pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, let's take a look at this lesson. So, This lesson is called, for Saturday, is Heaven, Education, and Eternal Learning. Let's look at our memory verse right away here. I'm going to try to learn how to do this scrolling as I go. And of course, I forgot to open up something here, so just give me a second. All right. So this lesson here, memory text, is from 1 Corinthians 2:9. It says, "Eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love him." I've always liked that verse just because again, I like to push my mind and thoughts, and I like sci-fi type movies and things like that, and that's probably why I like technology too. It just, everything pushes the boundaries. I like to be able to push my mind. I'm not the most adventurous maybe in the physical world at pushing my mind, but I love to try and do it in the mental world. Not that I'm not great at that either, but I got a little bit better at it. So, one thing about this verse, in studying about it, I didn't realize I didn't really take it in context with the rest that are around it. And I'd like to pull that up, but right now, excuse me, I'm kind of running low on time, so I have a lot I want to get in, so I'm have you just look it up yourself. But basically, I'll give you my understanding of it is that this isn't just talking about the idea of that. Paul wasn't just talking about the idea that we should see heaven as something that we can't even comprehend, even though that's what it sounds like here, and that's partly true. But at the same time, when you look at what's around it, it seems he was referring to more of the gospel, really. He's saying we can't comprehend the gospel. It's just, no matter what you do, there's just nothing you're going to do here to be able to really fully see it and understand it. We won't know until we get to heaven. And so I thought that was kind of interesting because, it's always referred to as, oh, you can't imagine it and such. No, we can understand some things about heaven. Obviously, there's a lot I'm sure we don't, and I'm sure the majesty of it is beyond our comprehension. But I just thought that was interesting that was brought up, and I hadn't really considered it in the context, which is always important. That's why we got to read not just little verses, we have to read the context. All right. Now, before I get too far into this lesson, because this is something that's going to be quite mind-opening, or at least push your brain limit there, I found this video and such that I want to share. But first, I just wanted to get you thinking to try and open your mind. Okay, so here we go. Let's see here. There's different things that people do to try and open their mind, to expand it. I don't know if I want to say expand really, but it allows you to kind of get outside your head. Does that make sense? It's kind of a out of your mind experience. Not in the bad way or anything like that, but just in trying to get people to think outside the box. Sometimes we have to push our mind and clear it. We get focused. It's so easy to get focused with everyday life and the things we have going on. And I remember there's this episode of the Simpsons where one of the characters is talking to Bart and trying to get him to clear his mind, which he's not the most studious student. So for him to think deep is going to be harder. And so his sister tries to say, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" And it doesn't faze him at all. He's like, "Oh, it's this," which it's true. I mean, it is one hand clapping. So then she goes, well, she uses the next one that I'm sure you've heard of too. Is, if a tree falls in a forest, does it make a sound? And he's like, well, of course it does. And she's like, can it? How do you know if no one's ever been there to hear it? And his eyes get all big, and he just all of a sudden, and you can tell he's had that moment where his mind kind of blew a little bit. And that's why I'm trying to get us with this, because heaven to me is a place that we can't, we really can't comprehend the full majesty of it. We can understand some things, but basically it's going to be something beyond what we've ever experienced. Just as the Bible verse said, even though, like I said, in context it can be seen differently, it can be really taken both ways, I think. So that kind of got a crack in our mind, I think, but I think I can do better. I happened to come across this video on YouTube, and I'm hoping they won't mind me using it here. I'm going to give you their information so that you can check it out on their website. They have a whole bunch of others on YouTube, and they have other websites too, from what I understand. This place is called Metaball Studios on YouTube, and as you see on the screen there, you'll see that I put up a link that'll take you to the video I'm going to show you in a minute. It's very fascinating, and it blows my mind each time I watch it. So I did have to speed it up because time is limited, but I definitely recommend going and watching the slowed version. They have some nice music with it. I'm going to be having to hold the music out because I won't be able to talk during it. But let us take and look at this and see what you think of this. Okay, so what we're seeing here is we're zooming into the most finite that we know of aspect of reality, zooming in way past atoms down to the, as it says there, the quantum foam, which a lot of this stuff's way beyond me. And now what you're going to be seeing is we're going to start zooming out. Supposedly that's the smallest thing possible, but I don't like to use too much of the for sure, because every time we think we found something, the next thing you know, something else pops up. So there's quarks. You've probably heard of those, which even within the quark size, there's obviously quite a vast difference. I don't even know how they come up with some of this stuff. It's got to be just incredibly smart people with math and such. And there we have a photon, and as you can see, we're getting to the atomic nucleus. And it's just, it's as we go larger and larger. I want to say larger and larger, but at this point, this is still stuff we can't even see with the naked eye at all, and we can't even see some of this with any actual microscope. It has to use an electron microscope and things like that to see down that low. There's DNA, of course. Now we're getting into some of the biological, the viruses and such, which of course we're dealing with a lot of viruses lately, so it's just amazing. Like right there, look at that red blood cell. All the way down inside that are all those atoms and quarks and everything else. Is just fascinating. There's a human here, so now we're starting to see stuff that we can actually see with our own eye. There's wonderful little bugs that we don't even realize are on us. Good old ant. So now we're getting to the stuff that we see every day, and I think we take it for granted. Obviously, when you're looking at this, do you realize that what we've zoomed out of is all in there, just to a huge degree? It's just compacted in there, and we don't even know it's there because it looks like something else. Now we're getting much larger stuff that we've seen, above us and over us. Those can be quite fascinating too, I think. Never been to the pyramids. I'd love to go see that, but I mean, I've been to some the wonders of things, and just the architectural stuff that we do is impressive. But honestly, when you start to look at the stuff that we're seeing here, obviously God is a much better architect than we are. Look at the size of some of these things. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And yet Iceland there is still larger than some of these things that we would consider huge. Now we're getting into some of the moons, and there's Pluto, which was demoted. There's our moon. So our country is kind of about the size of the moon there, it looks like. But now we're zooming out to our planets. Look at this. Look at Jupiter. I mean, this is crazy, isn't it? And yet, still, that's just, there you go. There's our sun, but wait, no, our sun is kind of small, actually, compared to the rest of the universe. And the wonders of the black hole, that's, something recent they've been studying, and it's just fascinating. And yet, even as big as that is, there we go, Antares. It just gets bigger and bigger, and even the brightest star in our sky, there's still stuff that gets bigger than that, from what we understand. There's a light day, so of that size, I mean, just can you comprehend that? It's just crazy. I mean, look at this stuff. There's nebulas and all this other stuff, and we're finally now getting to a light year. Do you know what a light year is? It's taking the speed of light and saying that you could travel in a year in that time. It's bigger than our sun, our our galaxy, well, our solar system anyway, and our planets there, bigger than the nebulas. I mean, it's just huge. Look at this. Isn't it crazy? And the distances to go between these places, I mean, it just would take you thousands, if not millions of years, depending on how far out you go, unless you could find some way around the speed of light. And there we go. We're just zooming out even more. Now we got to our galaxy. There's the Milky Way galaxy. So everything we are is somewhere in that little itty bitty dot that just now zoomed way out, because now this other thing is much bigger. Isn't that crazy? Look at there's our local group. That's local, okay? That's not long distance. This is just what's in our area. It's so in our area, then yet we still could never travel there in our lifetime. And yet that's considered a local group. There's the observable universe, and just, you have these giant clusters and things. It's just incredible, isn't it? I mean, the universe is so massive, you can't even get it in your head. You can't comprehend what it means to picture all this, and yet God is above all that. To me, that is just, I don't even know how to think about that. I mean, what do you say to a being that is able to comprehend all that and beyond that? Because that's all we can even understand. That's as far as we've seen the observable universe. It's a lot of theory and things going on, but have you ever thought about that? It's incredible. I'm amazed. I read some interesting statistics on the stars in our galaxy. They're estimating right now that there are 100 billion stars in our galaxy. 100 billion. I mean, that's just, have you ever thought about what a billion is? Let's see here. Let's say you can make a little mark with your finger. You can make 3 marks, 1, 2, 3, in a second. And do you realize how long it would take you to count 100 billion stars if you could make 3 every second, nonstop? Don't stop to eat, don't sleep, just nonstop, going 24/7. You would get, it would take roughly 1,057 years to finish. So get on it. Well, that's kind of the funny thing, though, is actually the first proof of a galaxy beyond our own wasn't even really discovered until after the Great Debate in 1925, which, the Great Debate, isn't that kind of it was a very serious time for the astronomers and scientists. It wasn't until Hubble, the Hubble telescope is named after him. He's the one that pushed this and created that telescope to be able to see this. So he was the one that finally gave us enough proof that people were like, okay, there's definitely a galaxy beyond our own. Before that, people were like, no, it could be, might not be, and they would argue. It was horrible. No one could agree on anything because they had all these different theories on what was going on. So if they had started at that year in 1925, and they had counted all 100 billion stars at that point, guess when they would have finished? Any idea? I'm sure you can do the math, but I'll give it to you. The year would be 2982. So we still haven't counted all the 100 billion stars yet. And none of us will be around if they were ever to do so. Of course, they don't actually literally count these. They do estimates and such. But I just think it's fascinating that, even in space, this place that, is so massive, and yet there's so much in there, and yet that's still considered small. Here's another number to give you some idea. In 2016, the idea of 200 billion galaxies. Now, galaxies, remember, that was a Milky Way galaxy we saw after it zoomed almost all the way out, getting past that, into the local cluster area. And that one galaxy, they're saying in 2016 they thought there was roughly 200 billion galaxies. But in 2016, they then changed that number to 2 trillion. That's with a T, trillion. Can you believe that? 2 trillion galaxies. That is made up of solar systems, planets, stars. Uh, like we have 100 billion in our own galaxy. I can't even do the math on some of these things without. Well, I wouldn't even understand. I mean, I could do the math with a calculator, but I mean, what would it mean? It's you're going to start going into exponential numbers and things. It's just ridiculous. Estimates say there are more stars than there are grains of sand on Earth. So if you could gather all the sand, under the ocean, on the beaches, on every piece of rock, everywhere, every little grain, there would still be more stars in our sky and in the space. We can't see them all, but isn't that crazy? It's just amazing feat. We go from so small we can't see it with our eyes and even comprehend it really. I mean, it's just down to nothingness. It's theoretical stuff at best, and yet we go from that size up to a size that again is way beyond our comprehension. What does it mean to be in space and it takes millions of miles to go anywhere, and it takes you light years to get anywhere, and yet in between that there are trillions of galaxies. It's just, I don't know, it's just mind-boggling. I really enjoy it. I like space, and so I thought I'd share that with you to try and help push our mind here a little bit. So we need to move on. I'm getting talking here, so I'll move on. But I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of what's at stake here with our God and with heaven. What is heaven? I mean, we've studied the sky out to what was it, 93 something trillion light years. I forget what it was. I don't. You'll have to go back and see the numbers, but it goes on so far, and yet we've never seen heaven there. At least not that we've seen. But that goes into the whole idea of there's the idea of who knows, there's parallel dimensions, other dimensions, and we know there's other dimensions, and we just don't see it. I mean, there could be things around us right now that we don't even know that way. And obviously our knowledge, we like to think, oh, we got this, we're figuring out how to get a vaccine for a virus and such. That's minuscule in that real aspect of what it takes for the universe to exist. And so let's take a look at what will happen if we consider the fact that heaven is a unique opportunity for us to educate ourselves. So we already read the memory text. On Saturday's lesson, they said something kind of interesting. I wanted to read that for you. Let me pull that up for you so you can read it on the screen. Okay, what we have here is a poet, fearful of death, asked about how a person could live without knowing for sure what dawn, what death, what doom awaited consciousness beyond the tomb. He created in his poem what he called the IPH, the Institute for Preparation for the Hereafter. Interesting idea. Yet how can one prepare for the hereafter if one doesn't even know what happens to a person in it? And that is very true, isn't it? I mean, how do you know what does it mean? And so that's where we have to start our lesson this week, is what is after death? What is this hereafter? How do you begin to comprehend what death is even? I mean, it's easy enough to explain in terms of what it happens, or when it happens, that it's a finality, but anything after is limited to our imagination. That's why there's so many different theories on what happens after death. I mean, I've seen it all. Like I said, I like sci-fi type movies, so of course they go into some of these wild theories, which interestingly enough, many of them are based off of religions and ideas that are on this planet. So I mean, it's not like it's something always that new, but it's still something that we just, it fascinates people and it scares people. And so that's where we're going to start our journey here of heaven, because honestly, for most of us, unless we're lucky enough that God comes and takes us without having to die, the rest of us will have to go through death before finding out what heaven is like. And that seems like a good place to start. So let's take and think about that. So here you have a human life. You're lucky if you live maybe 80 years. I mean, some people, can do 120 if they're lucky. And such. But basically, it varies quite a bit. Some people don't make it past birth. I mean, it's just life is never guaranteed. And so I want to think about that for a minute, and I want to show you something here that I put together to try and help us kind of understand time, because time is something that's, again, related to the universe. We saw that, the light year and everything. As humans, we have a hard time with time. We get very narrow-minded, focused on it. It's easy to go, even within a few minutes, it's like, oh, I forgot I had to do this, and sometimes we forget, people forget the anniversaries and other things. I mean, these are important things, and we still can't, keep them in our mind. How are we going to even comprehend what it means to have, 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years? What does it mean? So let's take a look at this slide I put together. Call that up. Okay, so here we have today, December 26, 2020. And there's the year. That line is I'm going to use to represent a year. It's not to 100% to scale. I did my best to do it, but it's not 100% accurate. And there we have 3 years, the year before and the year after. So next year's coming up, and the other two have passed, or just about passed. Now this is that 80 years I was talking about. You might be able to live, or a little longer, or a little shorter than that, but that's roughly the time frame. It starts to zoom out there. As you can see, all the line gets smaller and smaller. Now this is 2,000 years. This is going back to the birth of Christ, right? And your small little bit of 80 years just barely fits on there. But now, what if we go 10,000 years? You see it there? I mean, compared to 10,000 years, that 2,000 is kind of and the 80 is nothing. Now here's 1,000,000 years. Look we can't even see the numbers over there. They're so scrunched together and everything. They just don't even fit into our comprehension. And now God, deals with infinity. From what we know, time is infinite. It goes on and on. And at least in some fashion, time in this universe has been shown to possibly end. But basically, from our point of view there, let's say we were looking for the second coming, and that somehow we knew where it was going to be. From our point of view, it's that very narrow focus, and it looks so far away. And yet here we can see from God's point of view, because he's not limited in time, to him, everything is a massive amount. When you can see infinity, and you finally take the time to kind of focus your mind down onto, well, here's the distance between where they are complaining about getting to heaven and where I know I'm coming. For him, that's just a little itty bitty hop, skip, and a jump there. I mean, it's just a little itty bitty spot. That's why he can say it's so soon. His coming is soon. And of course, it can also be related to the fact that it's coming because our lifespan is short. So it really is soon. The time to be converted and saved is now, not not waiting until you hopefully reach that 80-year mark. It's not going to, no guarantees there. But I just think that's fascinating. Time is incredible. If you want to really mess with a child's mind, just have them try to understand what it means to, what does infinity mean? I can't understand it. I mean, you put it in my mind, and I still, it's still, God has always been, always will be. What does that mean? Well, where did he start? No, he didn't start. He's always been. So now that we have a sense of how majestic and powerful and just amazing God is, let's see what the Bible says about some of this stuff here. And we're going to go to check out something that Paul was talking about there. Of course, we heard, the eye has not seen. And in the lesson, I was able to find some information that, let's see, I think it was Ellen White quoted, in the Estee Bible Commentary, Volume 6. And so I'm going to pull that up for you so you can read along with me. At least I hope to. There we go. Okay. So it says here, the Apostle Paul was highly honored of God, being taken in holy vision to the third heaven, where he looked upon scenes whose glories might not be revealed to mortals. Mysteries which had been hidden for ages were revealed to him. And as much as he could bear of the workings of God and of his dealings with human minds was made known. It's like Well, I was given as much as he could hold. His brain can't process everything, so he's given as much as possible. But finite mind isn't going to hold everything God has to offer, which is something to think about too, isn't it? Anyway, Paul had a view of heaven, and in discoursing on the glories there, the very excuse me, the very best thing he could do was to not try to describe them. Have you ever thought about that? If you see something that's so amazing, sometimes our words just don't really do it justice, does it? And he just, he realized that nothing he could say would really even be comprehended. It might even become misunderstood. He tells us that eye had not seen nor heard, neither hath it entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for those that love him. So you may put your imagination to the stretch. You may try to try the very best of your abilities to take in and consider the eternal weight of glory, and yet your finite senses, faint and weary with the effort, cannot grasp it, for there is an infinity beyond. It takes all of eternity to unfold the glories, bring out the precious treasures of the Word of God. Now, that was just fascinating to me. I just really enjoyed hearing that. She always words things, in a very meaningful way, and I appreciated that, taking the context of Paul's verse there and expounding on it. And I think we need to, consider that ourselves. We have to think, what are we hoping for in life? What are we looking for? What is life about? Is it just about here? So let's take and continue on and look a little bit more, and let's see what we can come up with for answers on this. If you were thinking about heaven and think about goals, what is a goal? What does goal mean in heaven? What would that mean? I mean, here, goal is stay alive. It's find happiness. It's have enough money to live. I mean, there's numerous goals of different things, and some of them are good, some bad, some are just pointless. And we all make goals and different things like that. But what is a goal in a perfect place? I want you to think about that a little bit. What is the goal? If you get to heaven, what are you going to be doing there? What's the point? And with our lesson, it's about education, and I think that is a good explanation of probably what heaven should be considered. There'll be a time of education. I mean, think about it. You have this opportunity to study a being of infinite, so you'll never understand more than he knows. He always have something new he can teach you, because he knows it all and you don't. You never will, because you started out simple. So you could study for a trillion years and you would still not know what God knows. You know more, but you don't just you'll never catch up to him. Isn't that amazing? And so we have to think about, our time in heaven. What are we going to be doing there? What does it mean? And so let's move on then to Sunday's lesson, because I think that they did a good job here of trying to help us kind of think about some of these things and get into the proper mindset. So Sunday, the fate of the dead. I think that's a good place to start too, because again, like I said, the place of heaven starts really at death for most of us, and it's a very misunderstood topic in many ways, and so many theories. What do we do? Is there reincarnation? Is there spirits floating around? Are there ghosts and all this other stuff? And of course, as Adventists, we have our own beliefs on that. But in the end, I mean, it's not like we can have a lot of. It's not like you can call someone back. I mean, that's some people believe in the afterlife because of the fact that some people claim they've been there and then brought back. And maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I'm not going to go into that too deeply. That's up to God to give them whatever information they need. But at the same time, I know it's definitely not something I think that they're just jumping around between between worlds. I think that's more of our own minds creating things than anything else. But still, we have this idea of being something after death. Do we become energy? Are we a spirit? Are we life? Do we go into another phase? Or and in the end, though, often what most people see when they do see this continuing on is they see eternal life. It's interesting how we strive for that, even though our own experience says no, we don't live very long at all. and yet that's what we all seem to want. Um, Let me read this from the lesson because this was kind of interesting. In the 1600s, a French writer named Blaise Pascal was ruminating on the state of humanity. For him, one point was very clear. No matter how long a human being lived, and back then they didn't live all that long, and no matter how good that person's life was, and life wasn't all that great back then either, and sooner or later that person was going to die. Moreover, whatever came after death was going to be longer, infinitely longer, than the short span uh, of life here that preceded death. Thus, for Pascal, the most logical thing a person could or should find out is what fate awaits the dead. And he was astonished to see folks getting all worked up over such things as loss of office, and I think that's meaning office as in your place in life, your position of power, not your cubicle where you go to work. And then, or for some imaginary insult to his honor. Yet they paid no heed to the question of what happened after they were to die. And I think that's just, a very true point. But people don't see that. We don't want to see it, for one thing. I mean, it can be scary and depressing and frustrating. But at the same time, we're dealing with all these other little petty things in our lives that are, in the end, aren't going to matter worth anything. I mean, I've seen so many people that are getting upset about, every little thing, and it just kind of boggles my mind. I guess I feel like Pascal here. It's like, why are you guys so worried about these little things when there's so much bigger things in play? You should be much more worried about some of this other stuff that's going on. But that's the human condition, and I'm not immune to it either. And I know I've had many times where I've focused on just my little meaningless little life, at times. I mean, it's not completely meaningless, but in the end, the things I'm worried about have no real value in eternity or anywhere else. They were just important to my emotion and my pride at the time. And so, what we need to, again, perspective. I talk about it many times. You can hear me in my lessons. I'll always bring up the idea of perspective, because perspective is so important on this. If you lose perspective, you're going to get into where every little thing you do seems important. It's, if I don't do this, someone's going to die, or if I don't do this, I'm not going to have money, or if I take 1 second and too late to stop and help someone on the road, I won't get to work on time, and I'll lose my house and my family. I mean, we put in all these things instead of staying more in perspective. I'm not saying those things can't happen; they do happen, and that's sad, and it's part of life. But at the same time, aren't we supposed to be contemplating the idea that we are going to be limited here anyway? You could do everything you could to live the best life here, and just having everything you need and providing everything, and in the end you'll die anyway, and you can't take it with you, and you can maybe push some of it forward through some other people, but in the end, in a few generations, they probably won't remember you well. And even then, if you somehow are really famous, that you last through generations and through thousands of years, at some point, we know our sun is going to expand it's actually predicted to expand out to the size of Mars at some point, and maybe even beyond. So this planet will not be here forever, even if you don't believe in God. It's from a scientific standpoint, that's pretty much the belief. So in a couple billion years, no more Earth. And so it's one of those things where I like to think about the idea of, what does it mean then, when we sit here and worry about, my freedoms are being taken away. For one thing, I get a little perturbed on that, because people use the idea of freedom meaning I get to do whatever I want. Yes, that's a type of freedom, but that is not freedom. That is selfish desire, and just, everyone wants that kind of freedom. Do whatever you want and not be punished. Yeah. Go for it, right? Isn't that what everyone wants? That's what the devil basically said. He's like, told Adam and Eve, look, hey, God's lying, you aren't going to be punished. It's go for it. Have some fun. Do whatever you want. That's the whole point of life, is do whatever you want. And yet we've seen how well that worked out. And so, when we think of freedom, we need to think of freedom in terms of order, structure, logic, wisdom, compassion, and mercy. If you don't have those things in it, freedom can become a very dangerous and hurtful tool. I mean, just ask people that are given privilege. I mean, I know as a white person that, I have not experienced some of the things that other minority people have had to deal with, and I feel for them on that, as best I can, but again, I can't even comprehend some of it. And so it's, we're sitting here worrying about things like that that are just having so little meaning in our life. And we're sitting here trying to worry about what I get instead of worrying about what other people need. That people shouldn't be hurt just for their views or their color or their looks or anything else. What's the point of that? It wastes your time and it wastes their time. So anyway, I'm getting off topic there a little bit, but I just saying that this guy Pascal, he really came up, with an interesting point there. Is why are we worried about all this stuff that, yes, it's important, but at the same time, no, it's not. Now, we come to next part of this Sunday lesson, and maybe you've heard of the term, let me see here, YOLO. Have you heard of that? It's you only live once. You've probably heard it. It's become kind of popular, the idea of, tell someone YOLO, because kind of push people forward. What I found interesting is that this lesson actually kind of included the idea of YOLO. So let's take a little read at that here. It's right there under additional reading here. There we go. This is from In Heavenly Places by Ellen White, page 29, paragraph 3 through 5, it looks like. Oh, what an assurance. What a hope. Let us never reveal to the world, Let us ever reveal, there we go. Let us ever reveal to the world that we are seeking for a better country, even a heavenly. Heaven has been made for us, and we want a part in it. We cannot afford to allow anything to separate us from God in heaven. In this life, we must be partakers of the divine nature. Brethren and sisters, you have only one life to live. Interesting, not quite YOLO, but kind of sounds like it, doesn't it? And yet this was said a long time ago before YOLO was ever really made into a popular thing. It says, oh, let it be a life of virtue, a life hid with Christ in God. And I think that is, a big point of this is, let's, as much as we're trying to open our mind and thoughts here, we need to make sure we're truly focused on what it means to be here. It's easy to get like, well, this doesn't mean anything, so I might as well just hurry up and get it over with. And in fact, sometimes people use the phrase YOLO to kind of mean that. It's like, well, I might as well try now, because if I die, well, it's not going to matter anyway, And yet, I thought that's kind of a sad thought, isn't it? Is that really the way we should be looking at that term, that phrase, And so that's where I thought, well, maybe we can move forward to another thought of that and use the term that Ellen White kind of used in there. And that is of, hang on, I want to pull it up here for you. There it is. How about YOLO? Like Yolehu? You've only one life to live. And there's not much difference between that. You could say they're the exact same thing in some ways, but at the same time, I think it brings a little less harsh turn to it, a harsh tone. With YOLO, you have, you only live once, so it can be used both in a positive and negative. And when you say, you've only one life to live, you're kind of changing the perspective now. Now you're saying, this is on me. This isn't about just life in general and hoping that it either works out or doesn't. This is what we have. Our chance for anything in death, as we've been discussing in this week's lesson here, or this day's lesson, is that it's our chance to really reach the hereafter. And if you're going to do that, this is the place to do it, because you will not get a chance afterwards. There's some people that believe you possibly can, but I don't see that in the Bible, and I think it's important that we live our life here in such a way that we live with virtue, like it says, and even just from a standpoint of just being a good person, just be nice. Being mean and bad all the time seems exhausting in some ways. I'm sure you might get more stuff, but you also get a lot more hassle, at least in some ways, right? All right, so let's continue on with our lesson here. Just keep in mind yodel, or YOLO if you prefer, if you're stuck on that. It's a little easier to remember, right? Okay, so Monday's lesson. Now, this was a good one here. I'll put that up on the screen for you. A new existence. So now we've talked about death. Now we're talking about something that, what comes after that then? If you've reached death, what is our next step? What is our next goal? And I see my time is really running on here and I'm rambling, so I'll try to speed it up here a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay, so this section was talking about the heavenly difference, you might say. What does it mean to be in heaven? What is heaven? So let's take a look at that. And it says here, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things have passed away. That's from Revelation 21:4. What does this tell us about how different from this world the existence will be? It's incredible to think about. What does it mean to be this existence of death and such that we have that sorrow and pain if it's gone? What does that mean if it's just gone? Have you thought about what you would wake up and do if you just next day you had no more pain, no sorrow, nothing ever went bad that way? You probably jump for joy, at least in part of it. Although I know some people are actually kind of afraid of that too. It's an interesting topic, so we'll keep going with that. So this idea of death, and then the next step of the heavenly difference, this heavenly experience. What does that mean? Have you ever thought about what that means? And what does it mean to die in the next moment? What is that? Have you ever really laid back and considered that? I'd like to take you through just a little attempt to get our mind to, again, think a little more open and consider this. So just bear with me as I walk you through a little bit of a story. Okay, so picture this, right? You're in the car, maybe you got some friends in the back seat and beside you there, and you're just going on a trip, and it's just looking nice. Look at the sunny there, maybe a few too many cars, but it's good. You're going, just having fun. Everything's going well. You're thinking how wonderful life is, and you just your friends are laughing, and you know how that goes, right? We all like a good road trip, right? And I'm sitting there thinking about that, and I'm just like, it's just so amazing to consider that we get to experience these wonderful things like that. So I want you to picture yourself there in that car. Maybe the window's open so you can smell the fresh air and the breeze, and you guys are speeding along, and you're just looking around, and then your friend in the back, he's tells you a joke that just makes you all crack up, and you're just laughing away, and you're looking around, and there's an intersection there you go by, and a building there, and one of your favorite places, the favorite restaurant goes by, and you're all, oh, we should stop, and you're just going along, and there's cars passing you there, and you're passing a few, and who knows what's going on, and you're looking around, and everything. You see what happened there? So, if we are now at this point where everything is dark and gone, no more, what's next? What is your next thought? Do you have a next thought? What are we doing? Are we just in nothingness? Is this all there is? This darkness? Have you thought about that? As Christians, we have a view that there's something, as Adventist Christians anyway, we have the view that there's something immediately after that. Not exactly immediately in terms of our bodies remain, and we don't know what's going on for any number of years to millennia or more. But at the same time, we also know that at some point along that path, there is going to be, in our belief, that we are going to be risen by Jesus. Now, if you don't know anything, if you fall asleep at night and you wake up the next day, do you know everything that happened to you during the night? Unless, of course, you didn't sleep real well. But even then, you just don't know. When you sleep, I loved it in the car. My dad would tend to take us kids places, long distance trips at night because he knew we would sleep all the way and then we wouldn't complain as much. And, so here we are. Let's think about that. We're in this darkness, but to us, it has no time. There's no sense of time passing. So the moment you got hit, the moment your existence ended, the next thing you know is you're going to hear Jesus calling you, and now all of a sudden you are back alive in a whole new time frame, in a whole new existence, seeing Jesus coming in the clouds. I mean, what is that even like? I mean, I can't even, I wish I could create something to show that on the screen here to make that look amazing. But again, what is heaven? How could I make something strong enough to show the idea of going from one moment of horror where, you hear that crash and you're gone. It just, your friends, they might be gone, family, whatever, you could be gone. And yet the next thing you're hearing and seeing is Jesus coming in the clouds, your body being reformed in the perfect way, things happening that you can't even really begin to imagine. And if you start seeing people floating up into the air, you're either high on something or you've made it to the second coming, right? And so let's think about that a little bit and, understand that life is, it is so short. It really is. It can be gone in an instant. We don't even think about it. It'd be nice if you could, you wouldn't want to worry about it, right? I mean, if you were constantly thinking, well, here's life, it's going to go away any minute now. Just wait, here it comes. It's going to, you're going to be living in terror and fear. And so God's generous enough to allow us to have a mind that doesn't focus on that, at least most of us. But it also leaves us a little vulnerable because we become complacent and not really thinking of what's going on. So in Monday's lesson, there was this interesting section I wanted to read here. Let me call that up real quick. There we go. Boy, I'm going to have to, I'll get better at it. Just give me time. Okay, so I just found this really interesting. It was right down there. There we go. It says, "We are homeward bound. He who loved us so much as to die for us hath built for us a city. The New Jerusalem is our place of rest. There will be no sadness in the city of God, no wailing of sorrow, no dirge of crushed hopes and buried affections will evermore be heard. Soon the garments of heaviness will be changed changed for the wedding garment. Soon we shall witness the coronation of our King. Those whose lives have been hidden with Christ, those who on this earth have fought the good fight of faith, will shine forth with the Redeemer's glory in the kingdom of God." Isn't that amazing, to think about? And again, that's what I'm trying to go on here with our lesson is it's building. We started with some really bad kind of situations and stuff that's confusing to us, stuff we don't like about this world, and now all of a sudden, in an instant, it can change. In an instant, all the pain and everything you've ever gone through suddenly changes and doesn't have quite the same meaning. At least I don't think it would. I mean, if you're seeing something that now is a fulfillment of the idea that life is never going to be the same again, it's never going to be bad again. How can you worry that much about what went past? Those 80 years in the past, you're like, wasn't fun, but like going to the dentist, sometimes you just got to get it over with and get it done. If you sit there and wait with it, So let's move on to Tuesday because, like I said, I'm slowing things down here. So Tuesday was pretty good, but I'm going to have to skip some of it. So I recommend definitely studying and reading it. Hopefully you've already done that. But it brought up an interesting idea of saying Then shall we know. What does it mean when we finally get to heaven? Then shall we know. Uh, it's one of those things where sometimes even in school, sometimes you get there and then you learn something and you're finally like, now I got it. I finally get it. I've heard of it. I've seen it. I've experienced it. I just never understood it until I got there, and now I understand. There's something to be said for experience, or at least education of in a topic from someone that actually knows what's going on. So now that we've gotten to heaven, that our experience has changed, now what? What do we do? What is the goal there? And I think education seems to be a very logical choice in my mind. The idea of, if you don't have to worry about sorrows, if you don't have to worry about time, if you don't have to worry about anything like that going on, now you can devote yourself to creativity, to understanding, to helping, to learning. And by helping, I mean, it's not like there'll be a bunch of homeless people around that you have to go help, but helping as in just, help others if you want to take care of them and provide for them, do something nice for them instead of always having to do things to just barely squeak by and help someone survive. Imagine being able to go around doing things of just pure joy and, gift giving. You can become a Santa Claus, in a sense, just the idea of your perspective can change if you're willing to realize that in heaven, things are different. And, I think the idea is, if you get to heaven, one of the things I think of most is just the idea we don't have to rush. There's no rushing to learn. I was not one that enjoyed school very much. I am a perfectionist, and to me, school was mostly just a series of torturous days where they would give you tests and things and quiz you on things that you couldn't possibly know and ask you to do them right. And yes, the idea is then you study, and I get it, I understand it, but for me, it was not always a very fun time. It was very difficult at times. I was a good student, but because I had perfectionism like that, I had to push myself that much harder. It did not necessarily come easy to me. Like some people go through school and they just blow through it and they're good at it. I was good at it because I actually put the work in and had to force myself. But because I had to force myself, it was a constant rush. It was a constant stress. It really just broke me down. It was really a mess. And so for me, the idea of heaven, where you're up there, and so do you want to take 1,000 years off? What does that mean? In infinity? 1,000 years? That's a drop in the bucket. That's a short little nap. Go find a planet somewhere off in the middle of nowhere and go to sleep for 1,000 years and then come back, right? I mean, not that we'll be tired that way, but the idea is, when you don't have to rush, life can take on a whole different meaning. Even all the self-help people here on on Earth are always talking about the idea of slow yourself down. Take time for yourself. Time. We've heard the pastor talk about this numerous times. That we have to spend time. We have to take time. Time is going to keep moving on and going, and it's up to us to spend it properly. And speaking of that, let's take a look at. Let's see if it's in here. I saw it here somewhere. John 1:9. I think that's down here. There it is. I'll call that up. This is a short verse, of course, and some of you might have already known it. It says, there was there was the true light which, coming into the world, enlightens every man. Jesus coming into the world, that was, obviously a big deal, but it was a form of education. It was a form of teaching in one sense. I mean, here you're having the light of the world, quite literally. When you look at the idea of what light is, it's just a fascinating topic. I actually saw a documentary not too long ago that talked about the source of light, coming from stars. From what we know, and I'm no expert on this, but it was just so don't take me for 100% on this, but my understanding was, in a star, at the very core, is where light starts. Not necessarily the light of God, that can be another light beyond that, obviously, but just the idea of light starting there. Those photons, they react from those fusion of the atoms, and boom, you get massive energy. And these light particles want to go full speed. It's interesting. I didn't realize that light, when it starts out, is not what we see as light now. What reaches the earth is not what starts in the middle of the sun. That is gamma rays. The whole Hulk, don't make me angry, you wouldn't like me if I'm angry. Well, there are gamma rays. It doesn't necessarily do that, obviously, but they aren't good for the body though either. They can pass through and they can do a lot of harm. So if the sun were to just shoot out all its power at us, we probably wouldn't be on this planet. So what happens? How does this huge amount of energy that's just blasting out, wanting to go and hit us, it's coming right for us at the speed of light, quite literally. What does it do? At full strength, it's just a full power. How do you slow it down? And God, in His wisdom, has created an incredible system of checks and balances within the star. Our sun, on part of it, has a zone that seems to attract. It's just so dense that instead of the gamma particle the photon being able to go out and just, radiation go out and hit us right away, it gets trapped. It starts bouncing around. It gets absorbed into one little particle after another. It can't quite get away. And it keeps trying and it keeps going around. And it slowly gets there because, it's constantly trying to get away from the center. That's its goal. And it's just constantly pushing. And so as it's hopping through all this, thousands of miles of, I think it's thousands of miles of the inner surface of the sun, it's bouncing from one thing to the next, and each one of those times it joins with the particle in there, it slows it down just a little bitty bit, and so now it starts to slow down, and it actually stays in there for, I think they said something like 100,000 years before it finally reaches the next layer. But it's still somewhat dangerous. It's slowed down now. It's not quite as bad as it was, but it still has some issues. But that's okay because there's a whole nother layer to the sun that's even stickier, and it slows it down even more. And anyway, after it's gone through all this time, they say it can take roughly a million years for a photon to go from being born in the sun to actually being brought out and reaching us here on Earth. So when you look up at the sun, the light you're seeing there started long, long before you were ever born, before anything you can comprehend. Isn't that, it again blows my mind. It's incredible. And yet it's necessary, because if those particles came out as the full radiation that they had the power, we wouldn't have the light we see now that gives us nice color and everything like that. We would have burning sores and the planet that's burning up. So God, in His wisdom, was able to create a factory of light that knows how to adjust its own power. Isn't that fascinating? And so when I think of this verse here in John, where it says, there there was the true light which, coming into the world, enlightens every man. Don't we need to enlighten every man? I think that's our goal as Christians. We are to reflect the light of God so that we can help enlighten others, because that's what Jesus came for us. He became the light and gave it to us, but now we get the privilege of reflecting it for Him. So let's, of course, continue on here, because we are running a little low on time here, but I really like to go through some more here, so let's keep it going. One of the things that comes with this idea of light, though, and the idea of being, how should I say, being enlightened, of being made wiser, there's something interesting that happens. And what we get is we gain a deeper conviction as we gain discernment. And discernment comes from education and from training. So the more you are trained on something, what usually happens is you get deeper conviction in you. It's a natural effect of that knowledge that comes in. Now all of a sudden you start to understand things better. And Tuesday's lesson brought up the idea of, before the fall and after the fall, we will be taught by God, and we're taught by God. It was a direct by God. But then when we sinned, we have had to go through a period of trying to learn about God, but not directly from God, at least in most cases, and at least not as we could, where we could go up to Him and ask Him directly. And so think about that our stay here for whatever years that we're here, it is difficult, because we are having to fight to try and learn from teachers that aren't as good as the actual best professor. And so we need to keep that in mind, that our goal, again, shouldn't be everything here. It should be to do the best we can here and make the most out of our time. But our goal shouldn't be about trying to learn the most we can here, in terms of it's not going to be something that's going to be that valuable to take with us, if we can even take it with us. If you don't make it to heaven, what good is it, right? And here's something else to think about is when you get to heaven, here, if you study for a few hours, your eyes get tired, your mind gets weak, you just, right? Well, imagine in heaven where your body's perfect, you don't tire, your eyesight's better, your memory is great, you have fine motor control, and just everything works. Imagine what you could accomplish in a sense of education and scientific study, and just I know there's people that think that possibly before the flood, because humankind was still in a much better physical condition, that their eyesight might have been good enough that they could see down to smaller, maybe not down to atom, but still down to maybe smaller molecules and such like that. I mean, who knows what better eyesight might be able to do, a better mind. And so if we get to heaven, our ability to learn is not going to be hindered like it is here. And I really look forward to that. Now, of course, some people say that if everyone in heaven is perfect, of course, then what makes you special or unique? Why would I want to be there? And I understand that, and there's some things to that. But at the same time, I think it kind of narrows the view down to our understanding of what it means to be alive here. Alive here means making yourself stand out, making yourself have stuff, that making that pride and selfish needs, and not necessarily selfish in a bad way. It's selfish that you take care of your family. That's important, But at the same time, it's still a more self-centered view. Imagine being in heaven where it doesn't matter anymore. You're not studying to try and win over the world or to provide for your family. You are studying just for the pure enjoyment of learning something new. And of course, I've heard others say too that without the threat of pain or injury, that there's no excitement, of course, but also that there's no chance to really fail and grow. Some people are very big on the idea that you must go through failing and growing. And on this planet, it does seem to, in this environment, it is a very powerful way of learning. I've learned sometimes way too much from that, and I would have much rather have skipped it if I could have. But I don't think, again, that fully takes into comprehension the idea of what it means to be in a place without pain and such. And even then, I'm not, again, saying that there won't be pain in heaven as in physical touch. I mean, if you touch something and you touch it too hard, you don't have to necessarily have pain where your finger breaks, but you would at least have sense of, oh, that's hot, or this is pressure too much. You have to be able to feel things if you're going to touch things. And so I think, again, our understanding of what heaven will be like is just so narrow, and it's so easy to try and place our understanding of what's here up into what the heavenly world is like. All right, Wednesday's lesson. And I want to read this opening on this one. It was pretty good. Call that up. All right. The school in the hereafter. So now we're getting into the idea of once you're there, we get things figured out. Let's do this. So what we have here is it says, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. That's sorry, my screen's a little small here. It's 1 Corinthians 4:17 through 19, it looks like. So the lesson brings up, what hope do these texts offer us? What might some of the unseen eternal things be that we are waiting for, and that we are promised, through Jesus? Have you ever thought about that? What are some of these things? And since they give some verse there, let's take a look at that. That's kind of a good thing, I think. All right. Revelation 21, 1 through 2. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth passed away, and there was no longer any sea. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, made ready as a bride adorned for her husband. Again, isn't that, it's just, how do you see a city coming down out of heaven? That's, in the sci-fi world, it often gets compared to things like spaceship coming down and that type of thing. And it is that mind-boggling. It's something the size of a city coming down through the sky is just incredible to think about, in my mind anyway. Revelation 2:7. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will grant to eat of the tree of life, which is in the paradise of God. Again, just paradise. Some people have been places, down in the tropics and such. They say it's like paradise and such, but at the same time, you talk to them and they're like, well, then there's the bugs and it's never truly paradise. What is paradise? What is a tree of life? What does that even mean for us? And Revelation 7:14 through 17. I said to him, my Lord, you know? And he said to me, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. For this reason, they are before the throne of God, and they serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne will spread his tabernacle over them. They will hunger no more, nor thirst any more, nor will the sun beat down on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb in the center of the throne will be their shepherd, and will guide them to springs of water of life, and God will wipe away every tear from their eye. Isn't that a comforting thought? And yet, it also has a bit of sadness in there, in the fact that God is going to have to wipe away some tears. Tears aren't always the worst thing in the world. They're not fun, but at the same time, they can be therapeutic and help us. And just because we're going to heaven doesn't mean that there aren't things that we're going to have to deal with. Just because you get into a place that's good doesn't mean you don't have a lot of baggage. And I think over time, our baggage will obviously decrease, but I'm definitely looking forward to having God there that can help me understand things that I just, don't understand. All right, so what will we learn in heaven? What do you want to learn? I guess is the way to put it. I mean, have you ever thought, what are the topics of study there? No, it's for one thing, there's things we can't even understand. God has created an amazing world and universe that we can't even begin to think about. And again, like I said, I like the sci-fi thing, and so I want to mention that sometimes the sci-fi shows like to try and comprehend what life is like somewhere else. They try to recreate it in a way that is fascinating. And I think one that did a really interesting job of it was Avatar. If you ever saw that, the movie has a alien species that is being used, and when the creators made the film, they really did a good job of trying to create a different sense of another world. Some are just look like places on Earth, just with different characters and some makeup, but they did a good job of trying to create actual different plant life and animals. And so I want to show you a couple pictures here to give you an idea. Here's one of the main characters in it and such, and you can see those kind of floating, lighting jellyfish thing. They're not underwater. This is actually just at night in a dense forest jungle. But you can see, especially when this came out, it was done in 3D. It was quite impressive to see some of these, futuristic ideas of what, I don't say necessarily futuristic, but alternative versions of what life might be. And yet, as I was watching that and, looking into it, I couldn't help but think, even afterwards, that, everything still had a bit of Earth quality to it. We can't escape our own understanding. We push it as much as we can, but again, it's that whole, heaven is something beyond our understanding. How do you understand something that you can't even really fully comprehend? You do your best and you make it like this, but in the end, this is kind of pale, and especially in this particular instance, because this goes from a secular view of the idea that this planet, things still live and die. That right there takes the beauty of this, which is the colors and just the lights. It's just beautiful, but at the same time, isn't it kind of missing the idea of what true perfection needs to be or should be? And so the lesson brought out this question here, or this comment, and it said, let me pull it up. Try to picture what it will be like living forever in an entirely new world, one without all that makes life hard here so hard. What do you envision it to be like? What things are you particularly looking forward to? And I'm going to leave that just to you to comprehend and think about. We got to keep moving, but definitely think about it. Just take some time. It's Sabbath. Just lay back, think about it, and try to let your mind float on the things. And speaking of floating, a lot of people, when they think of heaven, what do they think of? We've all seen the cartoons and things like, right? You've seen it. They see this. They think that's what we're going to do in heaven all day, is float on a cloud playing the harp. And I've heard people say, like, I don't even like the harp. Why would I want to sit and play? I don't want to sit on a cloud all day. It's not good for my body. And that's sad that humanity has created this sense of heaven as a boring and kind of meaningless place. It's always cute and fun to see, but think about it. But it's not at all realistic, I don't believe. Now, I want to bring up another part of the lesson here, so I'll call that up. I believe we're now in Thursday. We're close to it. I think that's where it was, or was that Wednesday? Sorry, I'm trying to focus here. Oh, it's still a little at the end of Wednesday. Okay. I got ahead of myself. Again, I apologize for going over here. I hope to be done in 10 minutes. I shall do my best. But again, this just seemed like such a wonderful lesson. I really didn't want to cut it short. Okay, we're back. Here's Wednesday. And down here, here it is. The immortal minds will study with never-failing delight the wonders of creative power, the mysteries of redeeming love. There is no cruel, deceiving foe to tempt to forgetfulness of God. Every faculty will be developed, every capacity increased. The acquirement of knowledge will not be weary of the mind or exhausting the energies. There, the grandest enterprises will be carried forward, the loftiest aspirations reached, the highest ambitions realized, and still there will arise new heights to surmount, new wonders to admire, new truths to comprehend, fresh objects to call forth the powers of mind, soul, and body. I think that does a great job of describing a much better, much more fascinating view of heaven. Imagine that, where things are just now about understanding. I mean, we all like to learn some things, but can you imagine in a learning environment where you don't have to stress? It goes on and says, and as the years of eternity roll, okay, I mean, this is years going on, it will bring richer and more glorious revelations of God and of Christ. As knowledge is progressive, so will love, reverence, and happiness increase. That's a good one there. The more men learn of God, the greater will be their admiration of his character. As Jesus opens before them the riches of redemption and the amazing achievements in the great controversy with Satan, the hearts of their ransom beat with a stronger devotion, and they sweep the hearts of gold. Oh, maybe we'll have some hearts, huh? With a firmer hand, and 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of voices unite to swell the mighty chorus of praise. And that's got to be a good chorus. Choir practice going on there, right? Yeah, can't wait. But just interesting to think about. It's what is it when life has a whole different meaning? And I think that should then make us question the idea real quick here is, what if we're trying to get to this place of all happiness, why are we here in this place of living hell for some people, especially for most of us, but it can be even worse for some and such. So what does it mean to then, view life as an honor to suffer for Christ? That was brought up there in the lessons, and it's, what does that mean to view it as an honor to suffer for Christ? And I think you have to start putting it in perspective of what heaven means for you and what God means for you. And like it said there, in learning Jesus, you learn him in a deeper way that creates more devotion and understanding with him and a love for him. And the only way you're really going to suffer for someone and see it as an honor is if you are willing to care about them. And so I really think our goal on this planet needs to be not just to get through and get by, but it's to even suffer. It's to put ourselves last so that others can be lifted up and hopefully reach that heavenly kingdom too, because that's where you want to go. Is it going to matter if you get there a little beat up? if you can get someone else there, wouldn't you be happy if you get there and that someone comes up to you and just gives you this big old hug, just, you got me there. Well, man, I would hope it'd be more than one, right? And I think we just need to understand, we need to put in, again, perspective. Suffering is not always fun, but it can be productive. It can be helpful. Thursday said, Jesus is our teacher. He is, what is that like, even to have Jesus as your teacher? Not even sure the great teacher, as they put it, but how do you even begin to comprehend that? There's some verses there that help us, kind of understand that. I recommend reading them. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go into all of them, but I just want you to think about what it means to have a great teacher. Maybe in your past, you've had a teacher that was, one particular teacher. Most have had at least one teacher that kind of just seemed to reach them somehow. What would that be like then if you could compare that to what Jesus can provide you? Down at the end there, it says, the great controversy is ended. Sin and sinners are no more. The entire universe is clean. One pulse of harmony and gladness beats through the vast creation, from who created all, flow life and light and gladness. Throughout the realms of eliminated, I think I said that right, illimitable space, from the minutest atom, and remember we saw that video, to the greatest world, all things animate and inanimate, in their undershadowed beauty and perfect joy, declare that God is love. And that's why I wanted to kind of bring up that and show that video to you, because again, this is being talked about by a woman that didn't have that understanding, but still could see the majesty of what she was shown and understood. We're going from the minutest to the largest, and it's all in God's hands. Why do we worry about some of our little petty things? It's not that they're unimportant. Don't get me wrong, but in the grand scheme of things, if God can control your atoms and control the planets that are around us, I think we're in pretty good hands. All right, let's move on to Friday so that we can get done here and I can let you go. Again, I apologize for getting a little long-winded here. So, of course, the Friday lesson is always the further thought. I just wanted to do a quick summary real quick of the idea of, what does it mean to this idea of heaven and the afterlife and education. Let's kind of summarize this whole quarter's lesson, just having Jesus as your teacher. How could I summarize it? I don't even know if I have the words to really, explain it in any great way. But I think this might give us a little inspiration. What do you think of this? Isn't that lovely, And the lesson brought out a few times where, the idea that we need to really, as much as this planet has things that we hate and that hurts, there's also some immense beauty. And these things are pale compared to what heaven is like. Look at this picture. Man, put me a home on there and I'll stay there forever. Just bring me food and I'm good. Or I can get my own food, I suppose. But you know what I'm saying? It's just such a beautiful place. And yet, if you look deeply, into the picture, though, you see there's dying wood. There's a murky lake where stuff is, decaying. It's not the perfect picture it looks, and yet it's, to our mind, it's so majestic and wonderful, and it is. It is so amazing to me. I just love looking at these type of pictures. And yet, we're told this is, pale compared to what heaven is like, where if you were to see the scene there, the light is perfect, there's no smog, your eyes work perfectly, so you get this, your sense work perfectly, so you smell every flower perfectly, nothing stinks, everything is great. Why do we not want to be there? Why do we hang on to this life that we have here? Why are we so stubborn to be educated, you might say? And I want to read this last little bit here for you. I think it was in the lesson, so you know what? I'm just going to read it to you. If you want to read it, it's in the lesson. You can go read it later, but I think this picture is just fun to have there. So, let all that is beautiful in our earthly home remind us of the crystal river and green fields, the waving trees and the living fountains, the shining city and the white-robed singers of our heavenly home, that world of beauty which no artist can picture and no mortal tongue describe. Let your imagination picture the home of the saved, and remember that it will be more glorious than your brightest imagination can portray. That's from Ellen White in the book Heaven, page 33 and 133 and 134. People sometimes say that heaven is kind of this place of spiritual contemplation and bliss. It's not so much about doing things that are productive. It's not doing work. It's just sitting around and thinking all day. And people are, well, I don't want to do that either. I think we're just completely missing the idea of what heaven can be for us, because we do get this idea that it has to be so holy and righteous. You get up there, you can plant fields. You're going to want to eat. You're going to want to take care of things, but you're not going to have to worry about it in terms of, well, this plant isn't going to survive. I'm going to die over the winter. It's going to be, I get to enjoy watching this plant grow. Enjoyment, true enjoyment, without the rush of time. And I want to leave you with this last quote here. It says, "A fear of making the future inheritance seem too material has led many to spiritualize away the very truths which led us to look upon it as our home." Isn't that true? We see so much on the material aspect of things that when we look at heaven, we apply that same materialistic view. Christ assured his disciples that he went to prepare mansions for them in the Father's house. Those who accept the teachings of God, of God's word, will not be wholly ignorant concerning the heavenly abode. Human language is inadequate to describe the reward of the righteous. It will be known only to those who behold it. No finite mind can comprehend the glories of the paradise of God. That's from the Great Controversy, page 674 and 675. And I recommend reading, especially in Revelation, and you get some amazing pictures of heaven. But even throughout the Bible, there's just in Isaiah, he's seeing the throne of God with wheels. This is just incredible stuff. It's just, think about it. Push your mind a little, let it get out there and breathe a little. Don't suffocate it with all of life hassles. So I want to again just thank you for joining me. I want to leave you with just the thought of what you can maybe think about this coming week. The idea of wonder and mystery, always something new to learn. Have you thought about that? That would be heaven. God is a God that has continuously new and beyond information. In fact, he knows it all. I've actually wondered sometimes, if I were God, would I be bored? If you know everything, what do you do? And yet, being God, he obviously has an understanding beyond mine of that. And I think one of the things he loves to do, though, is create. He makes things and he leaves them with freedom. He gives them free will so that they can learn. Watching someone learn can be a great experience. For those of you that are parents, when you watch your child, learning to walk, you just get excited. Oh, it's just amazing watching someone learn, to see their mind just kind of growing in their head. And I think that's how it should be our experience. When we get to heaven, our minds are just going to start growing with all this information, all this fun, all this joy. So in that sense, we just need to think about our memory text, which, was just the idea of heaven is something we can't truly imagine. But not just heaven, the gospel, the love, the whole reason God came to earth and saved us, is something we can't comprehend. And so I want to leave you with this this advice. If I had to give you some advice, here it is. If how do we get to heaven? Because isn't that basically what this whole lesson was about? Is you want to get there, and you see the reason to do it, but now how do you get there? And I think we can just follow that advice of YOLO, or the yodel. I kind of prefer that one personally, but that's just me. But the idea of you only live once, or you only have one life to live. It is given to us by God that we have the chance to choose our own path, to learn, to study. It's up to us to make our life into something that we want. He's there to help and provide, but he's not going to force it on you. You get to choose. And so really, this is your life. This is your one life, and this is your only life, your last chance to try and figure out what you want your path to be, how you want to end up. What you do here is going to define where you end up in the afterlife. And I think, if you want to live in a way that's meaningful on this life, in this planet, in this existence, take and really put the yodel to work. Think about what it means to live life here in a way that has actual meaning and purpose. And one of the best ways to do that is start each day not with a list of things to do. You gotta get up, make breakfast, food, shower, all this other stuff. No, those are important. Start the day with a choice. Start with choice. Don't force yourself into a non-choice already. We wake up every day with no choice. Wake up and start making choices, saying like things like, today I choose to follow God even though things aren't going well. Today I choose to be happy because I have a God that loves me. Today I choose to think about heaven because it is the place I want to be. Choose the things that you want in life and work towards them. It doesn't mean you will get them here, but there is a home coming, and I hope we are all there. And I would love to see you all there, and I hope to be there myself. And I just someday we can see this type of picture only in its true beauty. And so thank you for joining me, and I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It is that Christmas is just over, and I hope you had a very Merry Christmas. I know I did. And again, we have the new year coming. Maybe it'll be a better year, maybe it won't. I can't predict the future, but I do know this, that as long as we have the God of the universe with us, the one that controls everything from things you can't see to the things that you still can't see because they're so big. If he's the one in charge, what do you have to worry? So put your hand and your trust in him and just follow him. And I thank you, and I want to just end with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we are blessed to be educated by you, to be created by you, to be knowledgeable of you, and to be able to gain your wisdom. But beyond that, we are blessed even more to understand your love and to be given your love, and to know that it's what we know of your love is already so small compared to what it really is. I think love is the greatest thing in the universe that you have created that is beyond our understanding. I think our view of love here is so limited. And so I just long for the day when we can be in heaven and sit at your feet and have you explain the mysteries of love to us, to open to us how science and love can even be combined, and how everything works together for your glory. I just ask that you would bless us now as we go and hear the Sabbath sermon online, and I just pray we'll keep everyone safe as we deal with this virus, and just give everyone a safe and happy new year. Be with those that are suffering from the virus and other things that are going on in life. Just take care of them. It's a rough time of year to have to try and deal with the troubles of life. It's always tough, but it tends to be a little tougher when it's the time of year when most people are trying to be happy and have families. So give them extra special comfort and help us to reach out and touch their lives. We only have one life to live here, Father. Let us use it for you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy the pastor's sermon. And again, I thank you for putting up with me with this, and I hope that you will continue to watch with us and bear with us. We'll get better, and we'll keep pushing this, because it's important to reach out to each other when we can't touch each other and go in physical. We need to still keep our minds active, keep reaching out. And I thank you for that. Have a wonderful Sabbath.